So you are your brother's keeper. You should be concerned about your brother's welfare. And if you see your brother hungry, feed him. If your brother is thirsty, give a drink. Give a drink. What if he's naked? What if he's in prison? Forget it, right? He deserves what he gets, right? The fool shouldn't have been hijacking cars, right?
No.
No, what should we be doing?
Visit
him. What if he's sick?
Take care.
Take care. Because when you did it to the
least of my brothers,
you did it to whom?
To Jesus.
Right. So are you your brother's keeper?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. See how much we can pick out of just one quick little sibling rivalry story? Huh?
Yeah.
Is this anything new? No. Now you see why these are written, that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ.
That by believing.
And that by believing you may what?
Life in his name.
This is how we have life in his name. We learned from this. Because there's nothing new here. It's going to keep going over. Why does it keep repeating itself? Because we're stubborn, hard-headed, sinful people that want our will and our way done. We don't want to follow this. We want to do things our way. That's why God said you have to master that. You have to get over that, because that's going to kill you if you don't. Those tendencies that want your will and your way and you do it and forget your brother and God are going to eventually kill you. Because that's what the enemy wants. To kill, to steal, and to destroy your life. And the only way you can do it is by overcoming him. And how do we overcome him? Prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. There's a good start. Well, I don't want to do that. Well, then you don't want life. Because that is the way to life. Those who wish to come after me must deny himself, prayer, fasting, almsgiving, take up your cross, how often?
Always.
Daily, and follow me.
Saint Ignatius is prayer, meditation, examination of conscience, and penitential life. Life of penitence. This is for
and what is the penitential life? Prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. Right. How does that overcome the world? Prayer connects you to God. It lifts you out of yourself and connects you to God. Fasting denies your body, the lust of the flesh, and almsgiving denies your lust for life. I want this, I want that, I want the other. What does almsgiving mean? Give it, give it, give it, give it, give it, not get, get, get.
That's why they say, you want to make God laugh, just tell your hands and then he's going to be laughing.
A what? Tell your what?
Chip, when Cain and Abel had two different occupations, completely different.
Yes.
And they presented their gifts to the Lord.
Why then the Lord?
Why was it attitude that caused Almighty God to pick Abel over Cain?
Yes, that's a very good point, because Torah scholars, Jews, have noted, she said, why was Cain's offering rejected? Was it attitude? And I would say yes. And the reason is this, because if you look in the Old Testament, there were a number of grain offerings that were part of the Old Testament sacrificial system. So it wasn't the fact that Cain gave fruits and vegetables to God that caused the sin to occur. It was the way that he presented it. It must have been, because that's why his offering was rejected. Yes?
I was just noticing on that though, it says that Cain picked the fruit up off the ground.
Where does it say that?
Doesn't it?
Oh, the fruit of the ground, an offering of the fruit of the ground. It's not necessarily that it picked it off the ground, it came from the ground. So he was a farmer.
Like he was, giving him the leftovers.
That might be, but I don't think that's quite what it means.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Perhaps, but I don't quite think that that's the meaning here. But good observation. And notice that this dispute between Cain and Abel is centered around what? Worship. How do you give back to God his due? And so it's the fruit of their labors, each of their labors, that they're giving back to God. The sacrifice that they made was probably not a right sacrifice. It was not the proper type of sacrifice. Okay? Cain gave of Cain gave of the fruit of his labors, but maybe it wasn't the best.
Right.
And a sacrifice demands the best. You give your best to God, always.
Abel did that.
Abel did, Cain did not. Yes.
I was going to say, even today, the sacrifice of an animal is much more valuable than the sacrifice of grain or fruit or vegetable.
Yes, there is a priority.
Maybe Cain chose a more difficult, strenuous life than, working, farming animals than working the soil. And maybe that was recognized by God that he worked harder and gave something greater than his brother.
You mean Abel?
Yeah, you have the occupations mixed, but I think I got what you mean. Yes. That's a possibility also. That's a possibility also.
That's why I put an example when the widow gave the only 2 coins she had it, and the Pharisees gave whatever.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's the difference. Remember the story of the widow's mite? Jesus was standing by the treasury, watching how people were giving, and the Pharisees were putting all of this gold and making a big, look at how much money I'm giving. I'm giving tons of gold. And then this poor little widow woman puts 2 little copper coins. And what is Jesus saying? She gave more than all of these other people. Why? Because she gave all she had. Whereas these other clowns gave out of their wealth. Out of their surplus, yes. Do you see the difference? And I think that's the principle that's here with Cain and Abel also. It's not the kind of offering that was given, it was what and how it was given. Was it all, or was it, I'll keep the best fruits and vegetables and I'll give these to God kind of thing?
Like that.
Yes? I think that's what makes the difference in the sacrifice.
One of his best firstlings of his flock.
Yes.
The best.
The best.
It's really clear.
Yes.
The best.
Good point.
Yes, my Bible says that Cain presented some of his crops as a gift to the Lord. Abel also brought a gift, the best portions of his firstborn lamb. So it's like Cain just gave some of his crops, and Abel gave his best firstborn lamb.
Very good. Yes, that's it. Do you see the difference, everyone?
Yeah.
Yes.
The same story when Peter asked the man, Ananias, sell the land and bring the money in, and he hired back.
Yes.
Why did Sapphira do the same thing, that bring the money in and pretend like this is all they have, sell the land and give to Peter. So the man already, for that when Peter said that, how could you lie to God?
Right.
That,
Right.
That not honesty. That's
Right.
what it is,
Yes. Very good. That's another good New Testament example.
They died instantly.
And they died because they lied to the Holy Spirit, it says. Because Peter tells them, it said, you were free to keep whatever you want. Why lie about this is all that we have to try and make yourself, I don't know, look good to other people? He says, because you're not lying to God. You are lying to God. You're only fooling yourself. Right?
Pretend like you are generous, but you actually greedy.
Yes. Yes.
Because Peter didn't ask to put the whole thing. You
Right.
Yeah, I have.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. And I think that's the essence of the story here of Cain and Abel. It's, are you giving your best? Are you presenting your best? Or are you just half-heartedly doing it and trying to pawn it off? If you are, you're only fooling yourself because God sees through this.
The sloppy work. I said that last week, the sloppy work that Cain presented to God.
Yes. So it's not the type of offering, because like I said, Torah scholars have recognized that even under the law, you were to give grain offerings. So it wasn't the type of offering that was wrong. It was how Cain presented it that was wrong. And that's why God was displeased. Okay? And then Cain's reaction was to kill him. I'm looking at the time. I really want to get through some of these other parts of chapter 5, so bear with me. Okay? Some of the unanswered questions that come up here are universal. 1, the Bible only mentions Cain, Abel, and later Seth at the end of chapter 4. Sons of Adam and Eve, did they have any daughters?
Maybe.
Maybe. What's the answer? Yes. And in fact, if you read in Genesis chapter 5, so turn to Genesis 5, verse 4, it says, the days of Adam after he became the father of Seth were 800 years. He had, what? Other sons and daughters. Well, then why only these 3 boys are named? Because those are the ones that the holy writers wanted you to focus on. But of course, they had other children. They had boys and girls. An interesting little side note here. According to Jewish mythology, I wouldn't even say tradition, it's Jewish legend. The Jewish legend is that Cain and Abel were twins.
Yeah.
They weren't separate births, they were born together. But Cain was born first and then Abel, but they were born as twins. It's interesting. It doesn't really say that, but it's part of Jewish mythology. Just a little side note. Another perennial question that comes up in this story is that after God confronts Cain, he curses him and sends him away. And it says in verse 17, well, let's look at verse 16. Then the Lord said to him, not so. If anyone slays Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord put a mark on Cain, lest anyone who came upon him should kill him. Then Cain went away from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod, in east of Eden. Cain knew his wife, and when she conceived, and bore Enoch, and he built a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. By the way, this isn't the Enoch that gets translated into heaven. This is the firstborn of Cain.
Enoch.
So, I'm sorry?
The other one is Enoch. It's Enoch.
It's not the same Enoch that is translated into heaven. That's a different one. We'll read about him in chapter 5. But the question always comes, where did Cain get his wife? So far in the story, we've read Cain and Abel. Abel's dead. Cain is away. Where's this wife?
Yeah, and how is he saying, why is he even worried about somebody killing him if they're the only people on earth?
Right. So the answer is, this is something that I looked into, very interesting. According to Jewish and Islamic tradition, there was a sister of Cain and Abel known as Awan, and she became the wife of Cain, and she was one of the daughters of Adam and Eve. This is also in the book of Jubilees. In the Jewish, these aren't the scriptures, these are Jewish legends. However, in other Jewish traditions, she's called Jumilia. And she was the sister, one of his sisters. So again, it goes back to Genesis 5:4, where it says Adam and Eve had many sons and daughters. And this was apparently one of their daughters that married Cain, and they established this city and so forth. So just because the text doesn't explicitly say the necessary order, there were probably other children at this time, as implied in the text. What if one of my brothers wants to kill me because of this? Well, God marks him and sends him away. So again, if it's just Adam and Eve and Cain, you're right, well, this doesn't make sense. But if there were other children by this time, then that would make sense, that Cain would be worried that his other brothers would come and kill him because of how he treated Abel. Which also makes kind of sense that he was his twin, so it kind of makes it a worse crime, because it's like if they were twins, then their brothers would feel more of a vengeance after him, because he was your twin, you killed him, you know. So very interesting how later traditions developed around this story. Yes, Tony?
But if we go back to Genesis the first chapter, you see that God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. Mm-hmm. So there's people on earth. They're woman and man, female and male. That's why later on the flood, God see the man so-called human, called mankind, and they're so wicked. That's why he wanted to flush them out. But the lies still go on. That
yes.
Adam still go on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
See, and in the Gospel of Luke, when he said, Jesus was the son of Joseph, and go on, Adam, the son of God.
Yes.
See, that's the different life. There's women out there. There's female and male out there. It's not like at first, when I first started the Bible, I thought about that. Where is that? So they
right.
Incest.